it rains diamonds. Okay. You get your diamonds. That already pays for the cost of the trip.
But then they're not worth anything because now they're just rain from the sky.
There's infinite of them.
You know what I mean? Do you value the rain?
We got supply.
Well, no, but I mean, you can use them for other things, you know, making sandpaper and stuff like that.
Butterscotch Shenanigans.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 195 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, and I'm still discombobulated after daylight savings time.
I'm Sam, and I'm so sore you can call me an eagle.
And, This is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is Marble Flippy 2019. Before we get started, we have a warning. Profanity, it's going to be in there. It's going to be just kind of peppered throughout everything we say.
It's the spice of
basically.
life.
It's the spice of grammar. Also, we'd like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. If you'd like to support the podcast, get over there. Go to moneygrab.bscotch.net and we'll grab your money. Let's talk about life,
Liberty, and the pursuit of games.
Let's talk about specifically day beds.
Yes.
Let's talk about this.
It's an important note. I got a day bed.
Sam got a day bed.
Okay.
What is this? What is this?
It's an interesting concept. Also, just one of my favorite sort of word combos because you're like, this actually does not. It doesn't tell me any more about the bed, really, or about the situation.
Actually, that's true. Things like, because other oxymorons like jumbo shrimp tell you like it's a big fucking shrimp. That makes sense, right? But yeah, daybed.
If I were to guess, based on the name, I would say it's a bed that you would only consider using in the day because of something about it.
It's probably intentionally less comfortable than a regular
It's going to
bed.
be less comfortable and maybe too small.
That's about right.
Okay.
That's about how it works. So my wife and I had this futon thing that we had gotten from World Market that had like you could pull down, you sort of like slid down like a transformer, the arms of it, and then the mattress that was on it that was previously bending all over the place, flattened down over those arms, and you had like a real shitty twin bed situation going on.
Yeah, we got one of those.
And the problem was that it was just real shitty.
Yep.
And it's also a real shitty couch.
True.
That one turned out to be.
Yeah.
So it was doing neither of its jobs particularly well.
So it's a multitasking piece of furniture.
Exactly
it's like,
what it
I'm
is.
going to do a real shit job of being in all things.
But when we looked at it in the store, we were like, this is going to do both jobs effectively. And then, of course,
it did not.
It did not.
Well, and it does it effectively as long as your definition of that is that it just becomes those two things.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So I wasn't delivering a quality experience on either realm.
Yeah, because we have a futon up so we don't really have a guest room in our house, so we just have like a place where a guest could be, so we got a futon there for that purpose, and it's like you unfold it.
It's like a Schrodinger's guest room.
But so you unfold it, and it's like it's smaller than any bed size I'm aware of. Even it's like a tiny little thing. But then the middle of it, because it folds in half, right, like hot dog wise, and so the middle of it is just like a fucking trench, and so but it's not wide enough that like you could just like sleep on one side. You would need to sleep in the middle.
In the trench.
So there's just
that
like a
kind of
trench
sounds cozy though.
It's not enough because it's more of a little trench was too grandiose of a word.
Oh.
It's more of like a little cut. It's just like a little cut right down the middle.
So you're just gonna be stuck at maybe
so it's kind of like your spinal cord would then just be like getting sucked into a hole a little bit.
It's not a good sleep situation. Yeah. So we got tired of this thing. And also realized we hadn't really been even using that room because despite the fact that that's the only room that we have that has a TV in it where we go watch shows and stuff, we frequently would just be like, let's just go watch this on a laptop.
They don't have to sit on that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like hurting our backs because it's just a terrible situation. So finally we were like, we're done with this. And I had this brainstorming session. Like, what are we going to do now? If we're going to get rid of this thing, what's the replacement? And so we got a day bed. So the idea is,
I feel like this is just an extension of the original concept.
Yeah.
Because you're like, we got a couch that can't be a couch or a bed.
No. Well, so here's the key difference because the day bed, when done correctly, is both an effective couch because it's a bed with a back on it. That's essentially it, right?
So it's a couch.
It's basically, it's a couch with a mattress in it. Okay. It's just sitting there.
So there's like a real big couch.
So like a full mattress. It's like a real deep couch.
Okay.
That's maybe another word for it. Instead of day bed.
You got a deep couch.
Yeah. And so as a result,
deep couch sounds super comfy.
Exactly.
A day bed, I'm still, not certain.
Deep
about.
couch, day. It's like a tomato sort of
Yeah, I guess it
situation,
is.
you know? But yeah, so we got it put in, and then yesterday we watched a movie on this thing, and it was heavenly.
Was it luxurious?
It was so luxurious because you can, of
I
course, it's a deep
assume-
couch, so you can sit all the way at the back, and like you can sit cross-legged.
I
comfortably
assume
on
you
this
had
thing.
a tray.
We did not this
Oh.
time. We didn't have
Fuck
snacks.
that up
This
real
was
good.
like this is too late in the night.
So you
for
were
snacks.
doing a small batch sort of prototype
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
run.
yeah.
You're like,
So
let's
next
not.
time, mix up some popcorn.
Yeah.
Bring up a tray.
Because we'll actually have room on
Yeah,
this
you
thing.
just
We
put a tray
we
on
can
it.
put our dog in there. You can put a tray full of snacks on there.
You could put a tray with a dog in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
With
So
snacks
another
on the
good
dog.
use of trays, carrying dogs around.
It's interesting how many problems we have to solve based on our desire to be 2 feet off the ground. Because like basically what you're saying is like I wanted to be laying down essentially on like a large comfortable surface while watching TV. Problem is the TV
It's up
that's
there.
a couple feet up. Now you got to be a couple feet up. So now you got this whole new set of
We
problems.
don't have enough ceiling TVs.
Where you just lay down and watch it.
Yeah, I think that's literally probably the only comfortable way to watch TV would be.
But I
laying
feel like
down.
there's too much terror of it just
oh yeah
coming
I
out
mean,
and smashing your
I
face
mean,
off.
yeah. So there is that.
I mean, yeah.
I mean,
And also, we have
That adds to the thrill.
we have 20-pound fans hanging from the ceiling, and we just walk under those all day.
that's true. But there's something about a motorized object with a spinning blade that's just comforting.
It's
think
far
about it.
more calming
Yeah.
than
We sleep
than
with
a
those
TV.
over our head, which is
Yeah,
a little weird.
kind of wild.
Yeah, I sometimes reflect on that.
Mhm.
My wife is very tall, so she always, if she's changing or something, she always has to like make sure she keeps her head down and her elbows down so she doesn't
Get caught in the fan.
get caught in the fan.
Uh-huh.
It's not a concern that us mortals have.
I remember
but,
I had
you
that
know.
once in, I think it was in high school. I was just trying to put on a long sleeve shirt and like got caught. And so I went straight up and just my hand just got eaten by the fan. Just like, and then my hand just hurt for the rest of the day.
Yep.
'Cause it got hit like 40 times.
Yeah.
before it was
Now,
like-
I have seen some of my favorite videos on YouTube are videos where people,
Oh, yeah.
for some reason, believe that they can like put something above the fan and then like jump up. I've seen people do this where like they try to jump up in between the blades and like catch the thing and
That's
with
not
their
a
mouth.
thing.
Yeah, and I'm
What?
like,
Is this one of those
gravity-
Tide Pod situations?
I don't know. I don't think it was ever a fad. I
Okay.
think it's just something that a bunch of idiots.
But I think
did.
if it happened more than once, it must have been a fad because
Well, it's probably 'cause, like-
two people would
yeah,
have
what you
that
see
idea?
is somebody will hang something from the ceiling over the fan, and then they will get on a chair or something, and they'll stand with their face like right below the fan blades, and then they'll try to jump up and like catch the thing in their mouth, and then come back
they
down.
try to get their head up there.
their head.
I think that's the thing because there's
their
space.
head.
Because there's space between the blades, a human is going to put their head there. You know what I mean? Like it's just going to happen. They're going to see it. They're going to be like, I could do
And
that.
it's of course what happens.
But
is,
it's incredibly because like your head only already barely fits in between the blades,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
means that if they were barely moving at all, it still wouldn't work.
so what you really have to do here is really not understand gravity.
Yeah, or
Like-
anything.
or how fast you are. You got to
Yeah.
be real confident with
Yeah,
your
because
speed.
the assumption is that
Yeah.
somehow you can go up and come back down faster than a fan blade moves like 3 inches, which I don't think. Yeah, so that what of course happens is
Get hit in the face.
they just get smashed in the head by this fan blade, and it breaks the blade off the fan, and then the fan starts whipping around because now it's uneven, and then the person flips off the chair.
Their
Maybe
eyes
the
gone.
light breaks or
I
something.
think my favorite one is it's just the fact that this thing is going so fast that you actually
You
can't,
can't
see
see
it
it.
anymore.
So this
And
person is
so-
standing there trying to time it.
Well, no, but I think this is also part of the reason why we just have them over our beds and don't worry about it, because for some reason the danger kind of feels like it dissipates as it goes faster because you're like, I can't.
Well, because it disappears. you
Yeah,
know?
I
I
can
It's
can't
like
see
a
it.
helicopter.
I can't see
you
it.
know?
It's fine.
Yeah.
And then you see those videos where like someone, like my favorite fail video is this person who like leans over a balcony to yell at some people in like inside of a house, and then this fan just like just whacks her in the face.
I know that video. I remember that one. That was a good one.
Man, that's one of those karma.
She was so
you're,
confident.
you're right
Yeah.
about to yell at someone.
Yeah, she's like swagging up there, and then she screams at him, and then just immediately gets punched.
It was,
So
yeah,
funny.
because it was
The
all about
universe says no.
it was
Yeah.
all about her swagger when she
Yep.
walked into it.
So funny.
That's why it's important to always maintain a neutral amount of swagger, so
Yeah.
that the universe doesn't
To
sort
try
of
to knock you down.
Try to knock you down
Mhm.
or up. You got to keep it even.
Mhm.
Okay, let's talk about GDC. So actually, we're recording this if you were paying attention to our dates, you'll notice that we're recording this on a Friday.
The Friday before GDC.
So it'll be 33 days before this episode comes out. My math is right.
It's not though.
But if it is, then it would be 33 days.
That's true.
So let's talk about GDC. What are our goals? What are our dreams?
Why
What
do we
are
go?
our pounds?
Why are we even going?
We're going mostly for business meetings.
We're going for business.
And that's always been true, but this year it's true in particular.
Even
because we actually have a product.
There's that. That helps.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't have this, already out game that's been out for 2 years.
Yeah.
to talk
So in our previous GDCs, we've had scenarios like we launched Flop Rocket the Thursday leading up to GDC. So Flop Rocket was live on the App Store during GDC. So of course we're not there to promote it because it's already out.
Yep.
Then we launched Crashlands in January, and then we went to GDC, and once again it's already out.
Yep.
So
Just
that's
is what
fine.
it is now.
And then it's been 3 years, and we just had Crashlands going. Last year, we went and we had an 11-week-old baby prototype of Levelhead that we were showing. And actually, that got a good response.
It did.
So last year was kind of the first time that we've gone to GDC with an active thing in development that was like getting a good response, and we were showcasing it to platforms and stuff. So it's this year.
This
What's
year's
happening?
it's we got the early access Steam launch coming up in April, and so we're talking to Steam, we're talking to literally all of our platform holders just to show them the game, show them how it actually works, because a big part of it from a platform holder standpoint is that they want to, of course, know that the thing is good. So ideally you can just go give it to them to play for a little bit. So we have more meetings than ever before on that, and then also our PR team has been pounding the pavement, so we have a bunch of PR meetings as well with press to show them the game. And so there's just a lot more going on this year than has ever been going on before. And for some reason, it's all on Wednesday.
It's all on Wednesday.
It's like Wednesday's the October of the week, I guess, where suddenly just like it's a gravity well, all the events are happening. So from like, I think it's 10 a.m. until like 5 p.m. on Wednesday, there are multiple overlapping meetings.
So we have to kind of divide and conquer, and it's going to be something.
It's going to be a thing.
Which is good. I mean, it's good to have that versus last year. I think last year we had a few meetings, which was great, but then a lot of the time we were just kind of like trying to find people to meet with and
more than just catching up people we hadn't seen for a year and all that good
It's
stuff.
much more relaxed last year. So it'd be a little more go this year than previous years. But
and also we are not. We used to get the passes to go see talks, and we're not really doing that this time around.
No, yeah. So part of that was just to recognize that as our needs have shifted from going to like the talks to try to network with people and that sort of thing to actually having the network built, that's sort of what we're working on now, is just sort of deepening those relationships with people. So we do have a lot of meetings with just friends or sort of interesting dev buddies and stuff like that to talk to. But for the most part, it's just this business stuff.
And of course, hardcore partying.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of those interesting things. I mean, for game developers, for game developers going to GDC, there's these evening parties that people go to, and
they go till about 2:00 in the morning.
A lot of them, they'll start at like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Which, of course, if you're coming from anywhere in the United States, you're going
that isn't the West Coast.
which means you're extra tired when you arrive, and then these things start late also. So 11 p.m. there on like Monday night, for example, is going to be 1 a.m. here, which is rough on the bod, especially when you're interacting with all these people. You're shaking hands. This is how the plague starts.
Yeah. Now, all these people get sick.
Yeah, including us usually, just because that's how it goes.
Yeah, we typically. I was being sarcastic when I said that we're going to rages. We actually go to bed at like 9:30 p.m. when we're at GDC, just because
it's a lot.
It's a lot, and honestly, it's going through this 4-day business conference, which is how we view it. While hungover, sick, and sleep deprived. Why would you do this? And then of course coming back, then you would lose the next like 4 or 5 days to recover and be sick some more.
Yes, we don't tend to go to the evening parties. There's usually 1 or 2 that we'll go pop into, but we don't stay long
for the first 30 minutes of the first hour, basically.
And a lot of it's just like, well, we might see some friends and stuff there, but this is sort of the nice thing about knowing who we want to talk to and sort of who our our people are a little bit more at this point is that we don't necessarily have to go do some of those things for networking purposes. We can just send an email and be like, hey, you want to get coffee or something, instead of going to a...
And even so, I'm not really sure that those were ever good for that. That's kind of the argument that people make.
I don't recall meeting anyone who we're now in contact with at a party.
At a party. Yeah.
No.
Except for, I guess the Rack 7 team we met at, but that was at an awards
ceremony.
party. Yeah. We were both up for.
Yeah.
Maybe that's different.
It's probably different.
Maybe
I don't know. So yeah, we're going to be there. So this episode will come out sort of while we're in the midst of all this. Specifically, it'll come out on our Intense Wednesday.
Yeah.
So we'll be
Intense Day.
We'll be probably checking in on the Discord and stuff while we're there.
Oh, definitely.
But
we'll be looking in there.
This is when we're actually active on Twitter and social media things.
Yeah.
So,
but people listening to the podcast will only find out about that
at the end
by the time we're mostly done.
Yeah, we're leaving on Thursday morning, actually, which is also the earliest we've left.
So hopefully some of you were there on Monday, two days ago, as you're listening to this, for our little
we're just like we're weaving through the folds of time with this episode.
It's freaky.
All right, so other stuff we want to quickly hit before we get on to industry news. We have a clearance sale.
Yes.
In our merch store. So we looked through our merch store. Sampada went through everything that we have with our merch.
She made a dope spreadsheet.
She made this giant spreadsheet, cataloged everything, and was like, we got to burn this thing down. Specifically, so most of our merch is Crashlands focused. And we didn't get the merch store up and running until something like a year and a half after Crashlands came out. So the game is still doing fine, but the hype isn't there.
It's deep in the tail.
Yeah. And so people just aren't really seeking out merch. And on top of that, so much of our audience is international, and our international shipping is like $50 or something
just
crazy.
$1 billion. Well, we don't have warehouses in Europe at all.
Yeah.
Because we're tiny shops. So.
Yeah. So we've just got, it's been hard to move the inventory. And on top of that, our office just has piles of boxes everywhere full of stuff.
Not too many, but there's enough.
It's enough that it's annoying.
Get these out here. So yeah, we chatted about it, and we're like, we used to do this thing where we would do these limited runs, which some of our very early fans from like Quadrupus days, I guess, probably for the first time we did it, might remember like the first time we sold the OG Butterscotch teas, which are ones that just say Butterscotch Shenanigans on them. We figured out how to do some like time gated thing, and then people just sort of submit their order and no one gets charged until the very end of it.
It's almost like a Kickstarter.
Yeah, kind of like that sort of thing. So I think the first one we ever did, we actually sold like, I think it was 57 t-shirts or something like that, if I recall.
Which is more shirts than we've sold through the merch store.
Is it? I don't even know.
So, period.
Yeah. So we were like, okay, that's a lower cost to us because we don't have to hold this inventory. And also it lets us do it in a more fun way where they're almost more event based and stuff. So we're going to probably be pivoting back toward that sort of a model. We will still have merch stuff, but it'll be in a very different form as far as how you get it.
We're going to come up with a cool shirt or something and then
be like, this is the shirt now for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, which also makes it more valuable, I think, to like just be active in the community because you're going to see these things more. Yeah. So if they'll be announced through the Discord and stuff like that. So we got these clearance sale going on. Like everything in our store is slashed in price, pretty much down to the bone. Some things we're actually just losing money on because we're like, we just got to get rid of it. We already were. So we're like, let's just we need to like get some of our money back. So yeah, I mean, just
I think that is the important thing about merch, which is that the overhead costs are high.
Yeah, you got to store it and manage it.
You got to store it, and then of course you're paying fees for any services that you're using to like Shopify or whatever to sell stuff through. And so if you're not moving a lot of merch, then you're always acting on a loss. You don't really
make up. Yeah. And we kind of looked at it earlier as sort of we weren't expecting to make a profit on the merch store. It was more of a fan service thing where it's like people may be into this kind of stuff and they want to, show their Butterscotch pride or whatever. Right. And so we made those things available, but yeah, it's just over the time, it's just been a little bit too much. So we'll be switching to limited runs. For now, get over to shop.vsketch.net and get your stuff because we're not refilling it.
Nope, we're going to shut it down.
We're going to shut it down.
Otherwise, we should say that we're already out of larges on pretty much every shirt, I believe, and very low numbers on some of the other ones.
Yeah, we did announce this in the Discord a few days ago. So things have already shipped.
Things are already moving, and we want to get rid of all of it. So please get in there and just take that off our hands.
Yeah, I think we do have mediums and extra larges. So if you were a large, you can shrink or grow appropriately to kind of match whatever inventory we've got left.
Yep.
And then the last bit of studio news is, of course, Shenanacon, which is our convention. It's happening in September. You can get tickets for that over at meet.bscotch.net. That is a limited capacity thing. So
Very limited.
Very limited. So if you want to come meet us and hang out and see a live podcast episode and that kind of thing, it'll be on a Saturday in September. So go to meet.bscotch.net to get your tickets.
It'll be a Saturday afternoon, and then afterwards in the evening, presumably we'll meet up
We'll
somewhere.
go
And
do some foods or bars or something. Yeah. All right, let's talk about industry news, which is the one thing we want to talk about is Anthem.
Yeah, what's the deal?
Anthem is this battle royale game made
It's not
by
Battle Royale, is it? That's Apex Legends.
Apex Legends.
Yeah.
Anthem is the Anthem is
It's
the
easy
MMO.
to get
Yeah.
everybody confused
These two shooter games came out on the same day, basically. So Anthem is having all kinds of interesting problems, which come down to this concept of scaling.
Yes.
All right, so just to get a quick
We'll
high level overview.
Yeah, we'll set the scene as far as what Anthem is. So it's what's referred to as a loot and shoot sort of a
and
game.
shoot.
So if you're familiar with a game like Borderlands or Destiny, it's something like that, where basically you shoot monsters to kill them, and then you get bigger guns. The monsters, for some reason, packing heat, tons of heat, but not using it. And so you get that heat off of them. You know, you get
It's kind of like when you kill a boar and you get a legendary axe.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, what was this boar doing with his axe?
Yeah.
just eating it.
You just eat
So
it.
it's sort of that model of the RPG weapon drops strapped onto guns and stuff like that in the futuristic setting.
Yeah.
On
And-
that note, just as a quick aside, I believe Borderlands 3 has been
Did they announce it?
hinted at or announced. I'm not sure which one of those two.
Or maybe it's gonna be Borderlands 2 Episode 1. Anyway.
But yeah, so the special thing about Anthem is that it is both class based. So you pick like a certain type of, in this case, you have these cool little mech suits called javelins, and you fly around and shoot stuff. And each one has slightly different powers. And so it's actually supposed to be a team based activity where you got your buddy who can absorb a lot of bullets. Maybe you can, I don't know, shoot lightning or something. I haven't really looked into
You
it too
can
much.
do good bullets to other things.
Exactly.
You could probably pull out a lightsaber.
Exactly. It's
something.
like it's class based, so that means that there's different roles people play, etc.
Tank, healer, DPS, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So let's talk with the scale problem.
All right. So scaling is an attempt to solve the problem that comes with having a persistent game that has levels in it. So as a player, you start as a level 1 sort of piece of crap noob, and you're like,
Yeah.
all I can do is fight rats.
You got like, I
know?
got a rusty handgun that can't even hit anything.
Yeah, I got a rusty spoon.
Mhm.
So that's how you start. And of course, by the time you hit maximum level, you're now hitting things for 39 billion damage.
You look so cool.
You're a being of
Mhm.
pure light.
Trumpets play every time you enter the room.
Right. And so then the question is, well, if there's kind of like this weird U-shaped curve when it comes to the player population in levels, because a lot of people start playing the game and then they drop out. Or maybe they start playing really actively at the beginning and then their playtime kind of cuts down. And so
Or
a
they'll,
lot of people are low level.
yeah, or they'll play a class and then they'll be like, I don't really like this class. And they'll try another one, right? And so you have a bunch of these sort of low level, I don't know, desertions going on
Yeah.
as far as what they're
So you've got a lot of people in the early levels. And then as people like kind of grind through the middle levels, they just kind of pass through. And then
they all get stuck at the top
And
level
then,
because there's nowhere else to
you
go.
get to the end and then it spikes back up again. So you get this weird, like most of the players are either level 1 or maximum level.
Mhm.
So a lot of designers have tried to figure out how to solve this. Blizzard has been struggling with this.
But I guess to solve what? Like, what's the actual problem?
So the
what
idea,
happens?
so the problem that they believe exists is that as a player, if you can't find a lot of people to play with, then you're going to be more likely to quit.
Mhm.
And so, and also playing with your friends. So if I know that my friend plays World of Warcraft and is level 50, but I'm level 30, then we can't play together because my friend.
But also, if you play the game a lot, because a lot of our hope as game developers is that people will sell our games for us, right? Because if they really love it, they'll have a buddy that'll be like, "Oh, I want to share this experience with you," right?
Yeah.
But with an MMO,
you can't play together.
you can't play together. If you convince your buddy to come join you, like
You
finally after years, you finally convince him to do it, and you're like, "Oh, but I'm level a jillion," and you just
I'll
have
need to
start.
restart a character to
Right.
play with
Yeah.
you.
And so this is a long-term sort of just feature of these persistent online games. So if you think about a game like Diablo 3 or any of these kinds of games where you level up and it's multiplayer, they all suffer from the same problem. So scaling is an attempt to fix this problem. And what scaling does is it basically says, you will level up and you will still gain abilities and you'll see bigger numbers, but what you see is actually not really what's happening. Because if I'm now level 50 and my friend is level 20, then my friend may be doing like 50 damage with a wand or something, and then I come in with my bazooka and I deal 50,000 damage, and we could fight the same enemy, and it would take us the same amount of time to kill it.
Yeah. So that's what scaling is sort of balancing and sometimes some external metric like time to kill or something like this with the player level, but showing you numbers that are associated with what your level is.
Well, that's not what just scaling is. Scaling is just how do you move the numbers together, right?
But this is often one of the solutions.
But this is this whole auto scaling mechanism to try to make it, or I guess dynamic scaling. Is
and so what you would see then, and this has been implemented now in World of Warcraft, and it's also implemented in Anthem, and players have found all kinds of problems with this. So they're like the first and obvious one is that you no longer feel stronger as you level up.
Yeah.
You see larger numbers, but things either stay the same or get harder, right? So you progress through these levels and you fight what appear to be larger and larger monsters and stuff. Or in some cases, you fight the same monsters and nothing really changes, right? So that feeling of becoming more powerful as you progress kind of gets just nuked by this concept of automatic scaling.
Yeah, you can't have the circumstance where you run into something that you like couldn't beat and then you scale up to it,
right,
and then beat it and then even scale beyond it and come back and just like hit it once and it explodes.
Right. So this is the feeling in Crashlands. You go through the early game, you go through the savannah and you fight these giant wampets and stuff, and they're just one-shotting you and it's terrifying. Then you get to the end of the bog, the second act of the game, and you come back to the savannah, and now all of a sudden you're just crushing these things into dust, and it feels awesome. It feels like you're much stronger, So scaling just deletes that. And scaling only exists for multiplayer, for this sort of like players playing together problem. So the other problem that it seeks to solve is the one of cooperative play. So if I go into a dungeon and I'm a healer and I'm level 10 and my buddy is level 50, my heals should do nothing to this giant health pool, right? Except with automatic scaling, with the magic of scaling, I can heal this person just as well as a level 50 healer does, or a level 100 healer or whatever. So this is the concept. So in the game like Anthem, I think it was about a week ago or a week and a half ago, players first started realizing that this scaling is horribly broken, where they may have put a couple hundred hours into getting one of the best guns that they could, and it's this beautiful, epic, crafted item and stuff, and it took them a long time to get, and it has all these modifiers, and they go fight an enemy, and it takes them like 10 seconds to defeat this enemy. And then at some point, some player who had one of these really badass weapons thought, what if I tried to fight this enemy with a level 1 gun? Like just grab the worst gun I can find.
Give it that rusty handgun back from your level 1 days.
And then all of a sudden this person found out I can kill enemies 3 times faster with the worst gun in the game than I could with the best gun.
And this is because the idea was that to make things feel more difficult in a game that's auto scaling, you have to actually make it so that the numbers are getting bigger, right? So like it looks like you're doing a lot more, but it actually takes longer to kill things because it should be that the enemies you're fighting are harder. It should feel like it's harder, right?
So all the numbers are fake.
But now there's a discrepancy because they're not increasing in size at the same rate, right? So your gun's capabilities are actually now decreasing relative to the amount of the sort of increased HP of the enemy.
Yeah. And this was a big problem back when the current World of Warcraft expansion launched, which is they don't just scale based on your level; they also scale based on your gear. So basically how strong you are versus an enemy is a combination of your level and then the power level of the gear that you're wearing. And so they released a new expansion. They added 10 levels to the game, so players had to once again level up 10 more times. And what people discovered was, because they were coming from the end of an expansion where they had all the really good gear, all the best gear in the game for their level, as they first started leveling up through this new set of content, all the monsters were super easy. They're just one-shotting everything and just mowing through these quests like nothing. And as they leveled up, their gear relative to their level started to even out.
Right.
So they started leveling up, and every level they would get weaker and weaker in a really dramatic, noticeable way.
Right. Yep.
To the point where you defeat an enemy in a half second or 1 second at level 110, and then at 120, it's taking you 8 seconds to defeat an enemy. And so huge uproar from players about like, this just feels terrible. Like, why did I buy this expansion and level up to just be bad? Like to be worse at everything, you know? This is a hard problem.
It's a really hard problem.
And
because you basically have to choose between solving this synchronicity problem with your player base. Like, do they get to play with each other? Like, do I as a level 10 person get to go into a dungeon with the entire rest of the population, or only people who are within like a 3-level range of where I'm at?
Or do you just say, I'm level 10 and that's just what I am?
Yeah.
You know? And personally, I prefer the no scaling whatsoever, just because of the fact that scaling turns everything into such an obvious game.
Yeah.
Like to me, it breaks the immersion where if I think back on times when I was playing games that did have these higher levels, like if you're playing, Guild Wars or something like that, and you'd go to these higher level zones and you'd see just all of these like big red numbers next to the enemies, or in some cases just like a skull, meaning like this thing is so high level, you shouldn't even mess with it. And it's this terrifying feeling of like, I got to get the fuck out of here. Right. And then you leave and you level up. And then when you come back, you can actually start to like put a dent in these things, and it feels really cool.
Right.
And then of course, much later you come back in and you just, it's nothing. Right.
But these games don't auto scale you in things that are above your level though, do they?
They do.
They do now.
Because Guild Wars 2 does not.
Guild Wars 2 doesn't.
Guild Wars 2 scales you down, but not.
Yeah, because I actually like that aspect of Guild Wars 2.
Which is, I think, probably a decent way to do it.
Yeah. So that way, and it allows you, it prevents you from ever getting to have that like one shot thing, right? Where you just go in and you just completely dominate an area because it scales you down, but it scales you to the high end because it's always in a range, you know? So you're still
strong.
You're still strong, but you never get to go in and like see some enormous monster that killed you 10 times and just flick it.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, you miss it on that, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. So this is, if you make a game that's both about being social, but also about constantly becoming strong, you will never.
Well, you just have to choose.
You got to choose.
It's a choice. And so I think that the interesting thing about it though is we're seeing even more of these. I think Adam, you mentioned some other instance they had recently.
Yeah, so the two cases were the one where basically all of a sudden the entire player base started looking for the worst weapons possible because it allowed them to kill things faster. So that happened a couple weeks ago.
The hunt for the worst weapon.
Yeah, and then this past week people realized that some aspect of their level, I'm not sure the details of the actual game, but some aspect of their level was the average of all of their gear or all their weapons or something like that. But it was the average of all the equipped ones, right?
Which means
that the things that don't have anything in them aren't zeros. They just don't exist. So if you
now get naked and put on a real good hat.
Yeah, if you just have one super good thing.
Now you're the Hat Man of Death.
Yeah, then on average you have the highest possible values, right? Because normally you have more gear and the other gear pulls down the average, and that's where you end up with. And so then that all of a sudden caused people to be like discarding stuff so that they could average out using only the topmost items. And of course in that game, we're also the monetization, like the whole thing is driven by loot. Mm-hmm. And so so in this case, I think Anthem is then particularly interesting as a problem because not only are they trying to have an MMO where everybody can play together all the time, where you also level up, but they're also monetizing the loot system.
What do they have for that? Is it like a loot box thing?
I'm not sure what they actually do, but I'm pretty sure it's monetized to some extent. But now,
let's say,
But now all of a sudden you can't, like, none of it works, right? Because there's no incentive to get the best stuff. Because you actually want the worst stuff.
You don't even want to buy the best stuff, even if it did exist for sale.
Yeah, because it'll just make you worse.
Yep.
So it ends up in this really interesting spot where like every aspect of the thing is actually fundamentally broken because they're trying to solve these two problems.
And modern WoW is suffering from the same, or an extension of the same problem, which is they want to incentivize people to get stronger by gear. So they drip feed better gear just throughout every single thing you do has a pretty good chance of giving you a gear upgrade. And then they also add lots of randomness to it and stuff. So like maybe like through this very normal mundane activity, just by chance, you hit that 1 in 1,000 chance that gear just becomes the best possible version of that piece of gear. But this creates this weird power creep problem where everybody just keeps getting perpetually infinitely stronger all the time.
Yep.
And so now every about 4 months, they do a reset where they introduce a new tier of content that the worst gear in that tier is far better than the best stuff you could have gotten before.
Mm-hmm.
So then what happens is it creates this 1 month long race to get the best stuff possible. And then people just stop caring and stop playing for the next few months because every day brings you closer to that point where none of your efforts matter anymore, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So like I think it's interesting how these kinds of games have been around forever. Forever, for like 20 years now. MMOs have been in the mainstream in some capacity, and they were fine. And we're inventing all of these, like these companies that have all this data, and they have had hundreds of millions of players pass through their ranks and stuff, and they're viewing things that used to be thought of as features of the game as core problems that if they could just like solve that thing, then all of a sudden something will happen. I don't know. I don't like to know quite what the target is.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing about it is really because what it's trying to do oftentimes is just change the audience somewhat, or open up the audience is typically what this is for. And so the issue there is that you can easily lose the actual mechanical heart of the game in the process, or like the sort of, in this case, the scaling heart of the game. And so you can end up making a game that, yes, is more accessible, but maybe doesn't actually deliver what the game is trying to deliver as well.
Yeah. We kind of talked about this with things like the Diablo mobile announcement. I think there's an interesting problem where I think it's one thing to release a separate game that's intended to hit a different audience. So if you think about like a Hearthstone or something like that, I think it's another thing entirely to take a game that is sort of like clearly angled toward a particular type of player, like a person who wants to invest a lot of hours and like shoot lots of monsters and become, much stronger, stuff like that. And then try to take that core game concept, but then change it in a fundamental way to, you don't just like open it up to a new audience, you change the audience, right? Like, I don't think there's a way to just like have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. With mobile, it would actually be fine because frankly, Diablo is a mobile game. Because you just tap on the screen.
Yeah, you heard it here, folks.
Yeah, I mean,
you just click on stuff,
this is,
and you get a new piece of gear every 8 seconds.
It's just a mobile game, but it
showers you with slot.
It's one of those things that drove us crazy about some of the reviews we got for Crashlands because people were giving it shit for
being
the way
for
being mouse controlled.
You use the mouse to control, and you get loot all the time. We're like, so Diablo.
Yeah, so it was. So anyway, that's a side issue.
Well, the thing is about Diablo is it doesn't have cartoon graphics.
Yeah.
So therefore it's not a mobile game.
But the mobile version won't really either. It'll probably be, a little lower quality so that they can get away with it. But
it looks pretty good.
I think the real problem is just going to be that they have to monetize it as a free to play game, and so it's going to be a real shit piece once they get done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. So this is all really interesting stuff that's going on, and I want to keep an eye on it just because it's great to learn from other people's design blunders.
Well, I think if it's easy to just sort of sit back and be like, why'd they do that? But if you look at this, like it's a really thorny design problem, and you just have to make a choice. That's actually how it comes down.
Yeah, well, and they didn't.
Yeah,
well, I mean
they tried to have all of it. Yeah. I would actually argue
you can't take it back.
Yeah. I would actually argue that because you were talking about like you can choose whether to like focus on community by doing this, like everybody can play with everybody via scaling, or focus on the game mechanics and like you are constantly getting stronger, and if people can't play with each other because they're too weak, then that's fine, right? I'd actually argue that by trying to make it so that everybody can play with everybody, you actually make it less social, because the community dies when the incentive to play the game goes away. And part of the incentive is seeing things that other people can do that you can't yet do, right? And so there's that uncomfortable moment where you're like, crap, I still got to like level up 10 more times before I can run this dungeon with my buddy. And as a designer, you have to just be okay with somebody being uncomfortable and having to put in a little bit of work to achieve something in the game. Right. But that is the thing that drives the community in those games.
And also it drives the particular gameplay experience that you want the player to have.
Yeah. So if you want to make a shooter where everybody plays with everybody, then just do that.
Well, that's what a battle royale is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. Like you literally drop in off of like a party bus.
You're all the same.
You just start shooting each other. And
well, you're not all the same. Some of you apparently have like a plastic T-Rex on a stick,
which is awesome. But you just look.
Talk about power creep.
Yeah.
So, we had this discussion with respect to Levelhead when asking about because there were some people in the alpha who like wish we didn't have a campaign because they just wanted all this stuff.
I want to have everything.
Yeah,
they said.
And it's one of those things. It's like that's not the gameplay experience we want to give to people because it's actually not a good experience. It's easy to think that it's going to be because
Or rather,
you want all the things. Like,
well, yeah, it might be a good experience for a small subset of people, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not the thing that we're trying to do.
no.
It's equivalent to this thing with Anthem, where it's like, what is the actual design intent, and then how do you get there,
but to me, the equivalent part would be if we just said, okay, well, you can just have everything, and you can also go through and like play the campaign and have unlocks and whatever, and we'll just like add some extra stuff in there or whatever. But the outcome would be that it would just be a worse game
or rather, it would be a different game that is worse in very particular ways
for most people.
Yeah.
Which I think would just call worse. I think. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also had that conversation about like, if people are coming into Levelhead thinking, I can build levels, and then they have to beat some stuff in the campaign before they can do that, or before they can build exactly the level that they want, they have to go unlock the items to be able to use them. And there's that question of like, is this a problem or what?
Or is it just a feature of the game?
Yeah.
Right.
And so kind of the conversation we had there was, if you think about a game where you do actually have to earn stuff, like maybe you saw a gameplay video of some MMO where you see like this high level character throwing some kind of mega fireball or something, and somebody buys the game, and of course they're level 1 with their rusty spoon, and they cannot summon fireballs, and that's not like a bait and switch. That's you have to earn that.
You earn your
that's
fireball.
part of the game. That's what the game is. It's the satisfaction of achieving things and stuff. So yeah, campaign is staying. It's going to be tweaked and modified, but it's staying. So let's get on to some questions. These questions come from our listeners over at podcast.bscotch.net. If you'd like to get your question answered on a future episode, go over there and ask it. First question comes from VikIsThicc. Do you have something against floating heads?
Yeah.
Well, the ones that are jerks. Yeah.
Yeah. The rest are fine.
Yeah. If it's in that Venn diagram, then you got a problem.
Yep.
Floating head, jerk.
I think we just have a problem with jerks.
Yeah.
If you happen to be a floating head, that's a side issue.
Yeah. I think you're just more likely to be a jerk if you're a floating head.
Yeah. We've all seen The Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
Yep.
Actually, is there
fucking
any
guy.
floating head that isn't a jerk?
Zordon.
That's true. Power Rangers.
What about?
I just watched Power Rangers last weekend.
Oh, nice. What about in Rick and Morty, the show me what you got heads? They're jerks probably too.
I would say they are more of like a chaotic neutral
That's possible.
in the sense that like
They weren't going to destroy the
aren't-
planet if they weren't sufficiently entertained.
but they weren't going to maliciously destroy the planet. They just have a different moral system, which is we
Which
want
is-
to be entertained and we'll destroy
I
planets
don't know. I
if we
feel like
aren't.
jerks have a different moral system. So
yeah,
it's the
so
same
I'm not
thing.
sure that's a fair
You know what I mean?
argument. I think they're just jerks.
I don't know, man. I'm just going to stand by this for no apparent reason.
Fair? All right.
Yeah.
So I guess if you are a jerk, just say, no, I just have a different moral system. Now you're not a jerk anymore.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
This would
How
be
you
That's how you get out of it. Next question comes from MySecretWeapon. Hey, Super Butterscotch Bros. What's a real world location you've always wanted to visit but haven't been able to? As a bonus, what's your favorite genre of food?
Well, Japan. That's where I want to go.
Actually, yeah.
I've had some friends who've managed to go there, and everyone's just like, it's a place.
I
It's
now
a
only really
different
want to
place.
go places to eat like really good food, you know? And I think it's one of those like Japan, South Korea.
Yep.
Are like the two places that I know would have food that I would just fucking love so much. That's just hard to, there's just not a lot of it, you know, around otherwise. So I'd say like those two places would be.
What you said.
I would say fucking Jupiter.
All right, go a little more.
I'm pretty sure you get crushed to death on the surface.
Well,
of that
here's
thing.
the thing. I mean,
Seth just really wants to get crushed to death.
it says it sounds cozy, you know, to be crushed under the atmospheric pressure of Jupiter. Presumably, you know, I haven't been able to go there because the technology, you know, isn't there yet. So if I could go there, then I guess it would be because it's fine to go there now. You know what I mean? Because it's only like 3 Gs of Earth Gs.
Oh, is it only 3Gs on
Yeah.
Jupiter?
Isn't that
Yeah.
when people
it's like
black
20,
out?
it's like
If you pull-
27 meters or 24 meters per second squared
But
of
isn't it
gravity.
if you
I
pull
think
3
eight's where
Gs,
you
don't you?
black out.
8 is black out.
3 is where everything hurts a lot.
3 is where if you weigh 150 pounds, you now weigh 450 pounds.
Ugh.
So
Yeah. So the thing about
that's not great.
the thing about Jupiter is it has these blue auroras that are larger than planet Earth. Okay, that's fucking cool.
But in order to see them, you have to die.
Well, no, the technology
Okay.
is fine. Sure. It
In
rains.
this scenario.
So the pressures are so high that if you go down into the into the atmosphere, it fucking rains diamonds. Okay.
Mhm.
You get your diamonds. That already pays for the cost of the trip.
But then they're not worth anything because now they're just rain from the
there's
sky.
infinite of them.
You know what I mean? Do you value the rain?
We got supply.
Well, no,
demand
but I mean,
problem.
you can use them for other things, you know, making sandpaper and stuff like that. Real good diamond.
Really excited
sandpaper.
about going to Jupiter, start a
Yeah.
sandpaper operation.
But also, I want to go to Europa because I bet there's aliens in there.
Probably.
Europa is one of the moons of Jupiter.
Mhm.
It's made of water ice that's probably 2 kilometers thick, and then underneath, it's hot because it's, you know, compressed. There's a lot of pressure down there. So you've got this like hot liquid water, which is of course going to create some kind of weird aliens down there. And on top of that, you get to see, when you're on the surface, you get to see Jupiter in your skyline, which is
Can you see
Pretty
anything but Jupiter in your skyline?
No.
At that point. I was gonna say,
no, all you see is Jupiter.
all
Which is
the
pretty
time.
dope.
Yeah.
And then there's these geysers that blast out like miles into the, or hundreds and thousands of miles into space, which you don't want to be over them.
Probably not.
But
Mhm.
if you think,
But if you want to put something on it though to launch that into space, like it's a
That'd be
pretty
cool.
cheap way to
That's
send
true.
things into orbit.
Mhm.
perfect instant thrust.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to travel to another planet unless that's like
Honestly, I feel like airplanes are so painful and uncomfortable. I feel like it's just as hard to go to Japan as it would be to go to Japan.
to go to Jupiter.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if you think about the airplane seats in coach class,
Yeah.
they're roughly the size of a chair that an astronaut has to pack into to go to the fucking moon.
Uh-huh.
Although, if you've seen those Dragon capsules from SpaceX, those chairs look real nice.
Yeah.
So probably
Space travel's gonna be better.
going to
yeah.
the moon is going to be more comfortable
Than
pretty
flying
soon
coach.
than flying just about any airline.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, I think if because you're
It'll
gonna
take a
be,
few days though, but
well, but you're also gonna be weightless for that trip. You know.
that's true.
Because the
So
thing
you
that-
won't have like the neck pain.
Yeah.
in the
You'll just
back.
like all of your joints will be kind of like all loose and you know.
Well, until you arrive on Jupiter and then you get
Oh,
triple
yeah, if you go to
weighted.
Jupiter, then you're fucked.
Yeah.
If you're going to the moon, though, then now you get there, and now you just stay all stretched out.
Mhm.
You know.
Well, but importantly, there's going to be all that gravity on Jupiter, but you're not going to be crushed under it because you're not standing on anything. You're just going to fall through gas, and then eventually you're going to land in some
Molten, horrible thing.
in some liquid
like
compressed
gas, basically.
So like the gases reach a point where they're so compressed they just become liquid.
Mhm.
So you're going to kind of land in some like liquid hydrogen.
But it's also
or
real
something.
hot.
Yeah, so it's a very complicated situation. But point being, you're not standing on anything, so
Yeah,
you're fine.
so it's fine.
You're going to be floating.
Mhm.
You're going to be very buoyant.
Mhm.
Your arms will feel very heavy and stuff.
Yeah, is there a
but-
point where you'll hit neutral buoyancy on Jupiter, where you just fall and you
Just
get
in the
slower and
gas?
slower in the gas?
Yeah, I would assume so.
Because if the pressure is really high anyway,
Doesn't that mean there should be a layer of diamonds, a floating layer
Somewhere in
of
there?
rain diamonds?
so we just got to get those diamonds.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, you'd kind of like splash into an ocean of diamond
Mhm.
goo.
Because if they're all the same buoyancy, then
But
they
how
would be
fast are
sort
you going to hit those diamonds? Because if you're still going real fast when you hit those things,
you got a parachute, it's fine. You get your Jupiter chute.
there's a lot of air in there. We can see all of it.
yeah,
So your parachute should work.
Yeah,
that's fair.
this is probably a bad idea, but that's a real world location, and if I want to
It's
go
on
there,
a real world, I guess.
it's not on the world, but it is a real world.
Yeah.
It's a world. All right, next question comes from Zivix. If you were releasing Crashlands with the knowledge you have today, would you still have launched on mobile and desktop at the same time? If not, what would your approach be, and how much time would you leave in between the releases?
Honestly, probably.
Yeah, I think that was less of the problem than the language and marketing and framing we used leading up to the launch.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, we probably actually just would have leaned harder into certain aspects of the game just throughout the whole process. Actually, I think the game would have been a little bit different to meet the market a little bit differently. I think.
Yeah, this is an interesting question because if we were releasing the game now, meaning we just had exactly the game, as it was when you launched
Yeah,
it.
I think I would do the same thing. But if we could do it all over again, I'd build the game a little bit differently, probably.
Yeah.
So we could
specifically
carve a niche
in
there.
HD.
Yeah.
would be one of the
Mhm.
first things because
Yep.
it's in 540p.
Mm-hmm.
So, which was fine in 2013 when we started making the game. By the time we released it, it was already kind of questionable.
Yeah.
And then you put it on desktop, and now all of a sudden your
boots
your main
look like-
character is
yeah.
like 30 pixels tall. So that's a bit of a bummer. But
Yeah, I think that's the main problem.
Yeah, I think the difference we have now is that the design approach of the game up front is different. So it's designed to try to actually meet the market a little bit better versus Crashlands was just sort of made, you know? It wasn't like
Crashlands was started as a mobile game.
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of waffled about that, but like it's true. We didn't have any plans of making PC games. And it wasn't until Crashlands reached a certain scope where we were like, oh shit, like this could actually be marketable on desktop. So yeah, I mean, a lot of our interfaces that we developed and the, you know, things like the controls, like we did not have WASD controls when we launched it to move around and stuff like that.
Controller controls.
Yeah, we didn't have controllers. Like it was literally just click to move. And like Adam was saying,
Just like Diablo.
yeah, what Adam was saying, there are an infinite number of PC games that are well received and are fantastic games that use the exact control scheme. The problem is not the control scheme; it's the framing.
Yeah.
So,
And also, none of those games are in 540p.
Yeah.
ours looked like a mobile.
well, actually,
shit,
ours was a higher resolution than Diablo 2, but that's from
That was
1990
25 years ago.
2000 or something.
Yeah.
So for us, it's, and this is something that we're actually really trying to escape with Levelhead, because it's already the case that our games are colorful, which immediately people go like, must be some kind of piece of shit, casual mobile garbage
As
Candy
if they've
Crush.
never played a Nintendo game before.
Right.
I think it's largely because the card everything's cartoony, right?
Yeah.
That's actually what it is. I mean, if you look at like Supergiant's one of the studios whose art is just phenomenal, and its colors are off the charts.
Right. They don't put black outlines on things, so now all of a sudden,
Well, actually, their newest game, Hades, uses some black outlines on stuff, and so it's one of those things though where it's like there, but the quality bar is just in a different spot. Where like just the level of fidelity in their artwork is on a different level. It's not meant to be cartoonish so much. It's sort of straddling that line between like near realism illustration and really fantastical stuff.
Yeah.
And so ours tends to be much more on the meeting on the cartoonish side, which naturally people are just like, you know, fuck this.
mobile.
Fuck this mobile game.
Yeah, so that's actually something that we're worried about with Levelhead in the sense that people will see that it's colorful and bright and stuff, and it's like, oh, you're building levels, and they're not going to realize that it's hard.
Yeah.
Like it's a hard game. It's not a casual game. So people are going to come into it expecting.
Yeah, we've been changing some of the language around it too, and I think that probably the trailer that we make for the early access launch will show a lot of deaths, I think, just to kind of, at least for a little bit, just to drive that home that like this is not easy.
This is not easy at all.
It's bright and colorful, but actually in some ways because it's so hard. Because I think if it were just like dark and grim the whole time and you didn't see this robot who's just like having a great time living his life out there, then I think it'd be kind of weird.
Yeah. And I think, our typical player over the alpha weekend died like nearly 1,000 times.
Oh yeah.
In the game. So, you know, that's always the challenge, is getting away from the mobile thing and also framing it such that the audience actually comes into it understanding
The right expectations.
what it is. And it's something we've talked about in the past, is like the balance of your game is a meeting between what the game is and the person who's playing it. So there's no such thing as a perfectly balanced game, right? Because if you hand, you know, Dark Souls to somebody who's never played a video game before, period, then it's a horrible experience and it's crazy imbalanced. It's way too hard, right? Mm-hmm. If you hand it to somebody who loves games and they know what they're getting into, then it's exactly the thing they want, and the balance is exact. It's perfect, right? So there's no such thing as a well-balanced game, and marketing is weirdly a big part of balance.
It is, because it's about shaping the perception of the game before someone gets it, right? To make sure that those things are in lockstep really effectively. And the places where you see this go wrong is if the game's not able to communicate either what the value of it is to that person, or communicate what that level of challenge is relative to what they think it's going to be. Right? Yeah. So that's probably the only thing as far as the marketing side that I'm concerned about. But it's also just a factor of like, this I think is the internal struggle with us. Like we make whatever games we want, and those are designed to meet the market. But we're like, I've personally never been super interested in making like a grim art style. And I also don't think it's super fun to even play games in that style per se, because they tend to be just monochrome. So it's one of those, like, there's some push and pull there, I think.
This is where somebody convinced me to try playing Elder Scrolls online. And they're like, oh yeah, graphics are beautiful and all this stuff. And I go in there and it's like everything is some shade of brown or gray or brownish gray.
Yeah, a very muted color.
Yeah, and I was just like
the Fallout series.
Yeah, I was just I opened up the game and I was just like, I hate this.
Right.
I can't, because an MMO is something that you're going to spend a lot of time
looking at.
And like, being in that grim of an atmosphere for many hours a week is just like you can't do it, you know.
Well, even games like Hollow Knight, which is beautiful to look at. It's
it's gorgeous.
It pulls off like this feeling that it's trying to convey very, very well. But that feeling is just this kind of like slightly depressed, dark.
It's a moodiness.
thing.
Yeah.
And so
as
you're like, the more I play that, and even though I'm really enjoying the game, I'm just like, I'm kind of down the whole time.
Yeah.
Because that's what the vibe is, right?
Yeah.
Which is
not really what we
it's not really what I need in my life, I don't think.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily want to put that on other people either, you know.
Yeah, but again, like it's one of those things where if you marry that thing with whatever both the narrative and the gameplay is, and you can get a really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it works
right?
really well, but it is one of those things too. It's like I just don't necessarily want to do that for an extended period of time, even though it is a good experience and it's serving a particular experience that the devs wanted us to have and doing a great job of it, and I really enjoyed it. But I think all those things are kind of time limited, you know, because at some point I'm just like, this is just too depressing,
too hard.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Peebnuts123. Can you please call this episode generic top-down shooter so that I might get an easier category in the next Shenanijam?
Speaking of Shenanijam, when's it happening?
June.
Yeah, we have a date. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah.
It is happening in June.
We have a website, right? Shenanijam.com.
Yep, maybe. Yeah, I think so.
Look, we're lost here.
That just goes to our itch page. So yeah.
Go to Shenanijam.com, and it's a game jam that we host once a year. We participate in it, so you can make games alongside us, and the themes come from podcast titles. Now, the question is, can we call
this
this
a bone?
No, I think. All right, we got a couple options here. Bottom up shooter. That's one.
Yeah, I like it.
You're not looking down. You don't know what you're looking at. All you see is it's like you're seeing a butt, basically.
Bottom up shooter. Yep.
It's on July 12th.
The camera's on the ground.
July 12th. Okay.
July 12th.
Not even June. We were off.
Not even June.
July. It's one of those J months, sort of in the middle there. I'm glad it's in July because that'll give us more time to recover from.
What were your other options? Bottom up shooter.
Bottom up shooter.
Good.
Second person shooter. That's where you are not
getting
playing.
Shot.
You're being shot. So you're a henchman and you just stand around and you go on patrols.
Or you just
And then at some point, the protagonist shoots you and then continues on with their life. And and then you go to maybe the hospital, and it's kind of like a walking simulator, right? Like, and then it's sort of the story of one of the victims of the protagonist in a first person shooter.
Interesting. Yeah.
You could also do like a fourth person shooter where you don't control the person being shot or the person doing the shooting, and you're not seeing anything from their perspective. You're just another person who's completely disassociated from the action. And you're kind of on the periphery of what's happening. And maybe you can intervene and like do stuff in the environment to sort of.
But you're not actually shooting anything.
You're not shooting anything. You're not involved in the two sides of the conflict.
It kind of seems like the third person shooter though.
Well, no, because the third person shooter is you are viewing the shooter from the third person and you're controlling them.
Yeah, but it's weird because now we're changing up what the numbers mean. Like sometimes they mean the number of people involved, and other times they mean the third view person you have looking at it.
Yeah, third person shooter should actually be that
you're the third person.
You're just in the background.
And that's the person who's not doing shit.
Yeah,
that's true.
Should be fourth person shooter is now when you break the fourth wall, right? And now you're aware that you're in
a game,
and you're not. Are you playing it still? Like, are you still controlling the shooter,
or
are you now like the environment? Maybe you're a crate or something.
Yeah, you might be.
That the shooter's taking cover behind.
Yeah.
So those are some options. Bottom up, second person shooter, fourth person shooter, fifth person shooter. I guess would be like. You just read about the incident in the newspaper.
That'd be second-hand shooter.
Second-hand shooter. I just heard about this big battle that went down.
Yeah.
You actually
try to reenact what happened in the first-person shooter. I think.
Oh yeah,
it's like a detective show. Yeah.
So it would be a.
So wait,
it's kind of like a Civil War reenactment.
It'd be a shooter reenactment game.
Yeah. Does this mean that all detective games are actually just second-hand shooters?
Second-hand shooters.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think you have to also shoot somebody though for it to be a secondhand shooter, because it's not just about figuring it out. It's about you're recreating the.
Maybe you could also do like a word of mouth shooter where you just kind of like hear through a series of other people what is supposed to be happening, right? And then if you want something to happen, then you got to send it back down the
It's like
chain.
playing telephone.
Yeah.
Telephone shooter. That's the one where you just shoot telephones though, because they're obsolete.
This is basically Twitch plays Pokemon, I feel like. It's like you get a bunch of incoherent commands coming in and trying to direct the action.
That reminds me of that really wild, very short movie, I guess is the word, that was on Netflix. That was like that. It was like this 80s themed thing where it was like this guy fighting Hitler and riding a velociraptor.
Yes.
It was very weird.
Kung Fury.
Kung Fury. But there's that moment where he shoots through the phone and then the bullets appear on the other side.
Yeah, that movie's hysterical.
It is so over the top.
Although, admittedly, when I was a youth, I totally would have believed that kind of thing would have happened. Because, like, how is the voice coming through there? And why can't other things go through
why
there?
can't I
my
just
voice
shoot
in
bullets
there?
through there?
Yeah.
I used to think, like, you know, if you got on the phone with somebody who was sick and you would hear them coughing, then you'd want to make sure you cover the
phone.
the phone, you know, hold
Well,
it
that's
away.
also how computers get viruses, you know?
Yeah, because somebody coughed through a phone on them.
Yep.
Yeah, we've all seen it.
All been there.
All right, one last question is from Zulio. Do you all have any tips on keeping up with taxes with a business, especially if you have your game on multiple platforms and stores?
Have an accountant.
Yeah, we've had an accountant forever.
Get an accountant.
They're not expensive,
Yeah,
especially for how much time they take for you to like not have to deal
you
with
save
taxes.
a lot of time, and importantly, they will know about things that you don't, and you will end up spending a lot less money, even though you spent money on the accountant.
Yes.
That's the whole point of that thing. But also, I think it's easy for somebody to get kind of overwhelmed with the fact that they're selling their game internationally or whatever. And each platform kind of handles things differently. But the long and the short of it is the store is selling the game on your behalf. And
It's not even on your behalf. They're just selling.
they're selling it and they're paying you essentially royalties. And depending on the country, there's going to be different tax laws, but
the store handles it.
mostly the store handles it. There's a few exceptions. I think if you're selling in Japan, once you surpass like, I think it's like $80,000 of revenue, then you have to start like uniquely reporting those taxes to the Japanese government or something.
Interesting.
So there's a few scenarios where you have to worry about it on a country by country basis, but largely the platforms just take care of stuff.
This is actually one of the primary distribution values that the platform is giving you.
Yeah. When people
Part
are
of
like,
the 30%.
yeah, when people are like complaining about the 30%, I'm like, you know what? If I don't have to do taxes in 80 countries, I'm cool. I'm cool with it. I'd rather make games than just sit around filling out tax forms all day. So, all right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for this week. So we'll be back onto our normal recording schedule post GDC, where we'll have all kinds of news about what happened. So we'd like to thank our producer Fat Bard for making us sound good. Thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. You can also get more involved in the Butterscotch community by going to podcast.bscotch.net. And we have merch on clearance at shop.bscotch.net.
Go buy it.
So go clear that out for us. So we really appreciate it. And otherwise, all the other links for the community stuff can be found at podcast.bscotch.net. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.